Rowan here, and welcome back to part 2 of my 3-part Footwork and Ultimate series. These next 5 drills that I'm about to share help take me from an average player to the MVP of the league. I use these every season. They're my secret, and I'm finally happy to share them with you. All right, the first thing we're gonna do with the advanced cutting today is the crown drill. We're gonna set up some cones in an M, and we're gonna work on staying balanced. We don't want to overcommit in ultimate because that's usually when the offense changes direction. There's a few variations. We're going to start with the back pedal and the acceleration. Another variation to this drill is the bail step. Here we're going to accelerate normal, but when we're coming back, instead of back pedaling, we're going to run with a slight hip twist so we can see the disc. The last variation to the crown drill is, instead of attacking it vertically, to attack it horizontally and practice our cutting. Here we're gonna bring the starting spot to the side of the drill and just work on our cuts back and forth, almost like the serpentine. The next advanced drill we're gonna work on is called the stoplight. Here we're really gonna emphasize on moving our feet fast. Another goal is to keep our hips on top of our feet. We never really wanna be leaning one way or the other. We wanna keep our hips over our feet so we can go any direction at any time. Here we're gonna put 3 cones about 3 yards apart, and we're gonna work on chopping our feet and going around the cone as close as possible. We don't wanna take big, choppy steps. We really wanna emphasize those fast feet. There's a couple good variations to this drill. One is we can go around it twice each to really emphasize working on our hips. A good handler variation to this drill is to use the shuffles. It's the same exact drill, but we're gonna shuffle into each loop. This drill that I'm about to show you is one of my favorites because not only is it working on our footwork, but also helping us develop our hand-eye coordination and ability to see and catch while our feet are moving. Here we're just gonna do some shuffles while we're catching and throwing a tennis ball back. You can just use 2 cones or a line, but if you really want to step it up, you can try to do this drill in a ladder. To make this drill even harder, instead of shuffling, we can either work on karaoke, we can work on up and back, and we can just use different footwork patterns while we're still working on the catching. Now for one final piece, let's see if we can use a disc in this drill. All right, now that we got our feet warmed up, let's put some more work into the hips. Here we're gonna work on turning over each shoulder, especially when we're moving. In ultimate, you're constantly orbiting and running around the field, so we need to simulate that in our training. Here we're gonna slide with our back to the box. When we get to this cone, we wanna plant and attack, stopping at the next cone, shuffling and repeating the drill. Our focus on this drill is when we get to the cone we're turning, we don't want a wide arc and a lot of steps. We wanna attack, plant, and get out of this at 90 degrees right down the line. We don't want to waste any movement's time, and time is separation. All right, now let's take a look at what that looks like in full speed. Feel free to change the size of the box. I usually do about 3 laps and rotate. The second part to this drill is the other variation where when we get to the cone, we turn over the inside and cover 270 degrees. This turn isn't optimal in ultimate, but it does happen and it's good to practice. Let's take a look. The same principles apply to when you get to the cone. You don't want to take a lot of steps. You don't want to take a wide turn. You really want to plant here, open up, and go. Again, efficient mechanics. Here we have an offensive drill. We're gonna set up 2 cones about 8 to 10 yards apart. We want to focus a little more on conditioning. We can make those bigger, but here again, it's just footwork specific. So the blue cone in the middle is where I start, and we're just gonna practice coming from an athletic stance to touch a cone and sprint through the other. One of the most common cuts in Ultimate, there and back. Just like all of our footwork, it's important to make sure we're doing everything on both sides. We don't want to be too right or left dominant. So here I'm going to do the same thing going the other direction. Some variations to this drill. Let's change the angle of the cone we're attacking. There's so many shapes that you can cut in Ultimate that you just got to practice across the board. Again, play around with the angles you're cutting and also the distance. Make that cone really close or further, and vice versa. Thanks for checking out my favorite footwork drills in Ultimate today. Next up, we have part 3, developing your speed and reaction time, which are both critical to success in Ultimate. And if you haven't got to check out part 1, the best ladder workouts for Ultimate, make sure you do that as well. Shout out to Elijah at SLA. Let's go. But shuffle into it. So now we're gonna shuffle, still do our 2, Can't show them how out of shape I am on one rep. All right.